Occupation by Israel? Really? What is the real status of the West Bank and Gaza? All the information given in this video is not made up by me, but is distilled from historical sources, partly given to me by ChatGPT and Perplexity AI. This is one of several videos I made about the so-called Palestinians and the problems they have with Israel. Those Palestinians, together with a lot of other Arabs, don't like Jews to live in Israel, and they want to destroy Israel and all of the Jews. But the Jews are very smart people with a very good army and have help from the United States. So the Arabs know already a long time that they cannot beat the Israelis with weapons. So they found another way of fighting them. They tell a lot of lies about the Israeli and also about themselves. So people in other countries will also hate the Israeli and pity the Palestinians. However, if you look at the historical sources, then it is clear that all they tell is one enormous lie. Good evening, everybody. My name is Perry Pepple, and this morning I want to tell you about the legal status of the West Bank and Gaza. The so-called Palestinians and many others claim that Israel is illegally occupying the West Bank and Gaza. Is that so? Let's take a look at the historical facts. The area of Palestine, nowadays Israel, West Bank and Gaza, was from 1517 till 1917 part of the large Ottoman Empire, and there were Jews and Arabs living there. When, as an outcome of World War I, the Ottoman Empire was defeated by, amongst others, Great Britain and France, the area of Palestine was conquered by Great Britain. The British got official mandate over the area in 1922 and named it the State of Palestine. It was the intention that this state would eventually become independent. The Jews and Arabs both wanted the whole area as their own state and frequently were fighting over it. That's why on November 29, 1947, the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 181, recommending the partition of mandatory Palestine into a Jewish and an Arab state. You could say that both the Jews and the Arabs were granted the right to found their own state. However, the Arabs were not satisfied with just a part of Palestine. They wanted it all, they said. But in fact, they had no interest in their own state and just wanted to prevent the creation of a Jewish state. And so the Arab Higher Committee for Palestine formally rejected the United Nations Special Committee on Palestine's partition plan before the final United Nations vote. In fact, that meant that they were not willing to accept the right that was given to them. When you are not accepting a gift, then you're not entitled to it anymore. Let's take a look at the part of Palestine that was refused by the Arabs. Until May 15, 1948, it was governed by the British, but on that date, they ended the mandate. The plan was that the Arabs would take over, but they refused to do so. So, After May 15, 1948, the area became no man's land, governed by nobody. There was a legal vacuum created, and vacuums never exist long. They are filled by others. In this case, 5 Arab countries tried to fill the vacuum by invading the territory of former Palestine, that was now the state of Israel, plus that piece of no man's land. The plan of the 5 countries was to take all of former Palestine for their own. That plan backfired in a monumental way. Israel struck back and won the war. After the war, the area refused by the Arabs of former Palestine was now conquered by Transjordan, Egypt and Israel. Egypt occupied the Gaza Strip, and Transjordan and Israel each had taken a part of the West Bank. What was the legal status of those occupations? Egypt and Transjordan both had conquered land in a war they started, and for that they had to cross the border of their own country. So the occupation was without a shadow of a doubt illegal. Israel, on the other hand, didn't start the war and also didn't cross the border of former mandatory Palestine. They only crossed the borders as proposed in the partition plan of 1947. What is the legal status of those borders? The borders of mandatory Palestine were recognized internationally through the League of Nations Mandate document. The legal status of the borders proposed in the 1947 United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine was not binding. It was only a recommendation and not legally binding. In layman's terms, the borders of mandatory Palestine are set in stone, while the borders of the partition plan were written in soft pencil. This clearly shows that when Israel took part of the West Bank in 1948, they didn't cross a legal border, and also they didn't take it from another sovereign state. It was no man's land, and Israel took it legally. Then came the Six-Day War in 1967. Although Israel then made formally the first move, many historians believe that in fact Egypt started the war by closing off the Straits of Tiran to Israeli shipping, and because of the mobilization of forces in the Sinai Peninsula and the expulsion of United Nations peacekeepers. But in fact, it doesn't matter who started the war, because apart from the Sinai Peninsula, that was given back to Egypt as part of a peace treaty, no territory outside the borders of mandatory Palestine was taken. Israel took the West Bank from Jordan and took Gaza from Egypt. Jordan and Egypt were occupying these territories illegally. So, when Israel took over the West Bank and Gaza, they were just reclaiming territory that was rightfully theirs. No other country had a legal claim for those areas. Because when you look at it pragmatically and not emotionally, like those pro-Palestinian protesters who don't have a clue about history, then you see that for the disputed areas West Bank and Gaza, only 3 parties were involved: the British, the Jews and the Arabs. The British ended the mandate of these areas on May 15, 1948, so they had no say in it anymore. The Arabs had not accepted these areas, and so they had put themselves out of the game. The Jews really wanted these areas, and so, as only remaining candidate, they had the fullest right to claim these areas. So, the situation after the 6-day war, after returning the Sinai, by the way, a very good candidate for those Palestinian refugees, is the most logical and obvious situation there is, namely, all of former Palestine as the state of Israel. Some find that hard to swallow, but it was Sherlock Holmes who said, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. So, viewers, if you believe that the presence of Israel in the West Bank and Gaza is an illegal occupation, then this kind of evidence is not really helping, is it? Somebody said a long time ago, the world wants to be deceived. Do you want to be deceived? Or are you getting wiser? You can fool some of the people all of the time, and you can fool of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. This was the true story of the status of the West Bank and Gaza. My name is Perry Pepper. Thank you for watching. Please watch my other videos and feel free to share them with everybody.